going to spend a few minutes talking with you this morning, or this afternoon rather, about the Perkins Program Effectiveness Review and our Program Effectiveness Report. And we generally just call that the PER. And so as I'm referring to the PER, I'm referring to the Perkins Program Effectiveness Report. And this is a required report that goes along with the Carl Perkins Career and Technical Education Act. And we will just kind of breeze through this a little bit this morning. And some of this I may go a little bit quicker than others, like the copyright. If you want to read it, well, you can come back to it later because you're going to have a copy of it. Okay, so here are the questions that we're going to try to talk about this afternoon. I keep calling this morning. Things we're going to talk about this afternoon: how do I get access to the PER? How will I know when the PER is open? Where do I find the PER? When's the darn thing due? What kind of information do I have to put on it? Why should I complete it? You know, that's getting pretty late in this discussion to start talking about, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done this in the first place, but we'll talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. And what do I need to know about certification and licensing and the exams that are associated with that as relationship to the Program Effectiveness Report? So we're going to talk about all those things as we go through this. So let me ask this question of you first. How many of you, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. How many of you have TEA's account already and you know how to get on it? Oh, that's almost everybody. So we're probably going to cover some of this a little bit quicker than we would otherwise, but just know that if that's not you, if you don't have a TEAS account, this is a great resource that's available to you that will kind of step you through that. We can help with that, and of course there are resources online that will also help you with that. So we're going to kind of walk through this pretty quickly under that portion. Let me ask another question. Some of you may be able to sleep through this. How many of you have already done your Program Effectiveness Reports? You got that thing sent, submitted, certified, and you're happy? Well, y'all are the champs. You are the champs. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the how do I get access. And again, I'm going to go through this quickly. If you have questions, we'll be happy to stop and answer them. I feel really fortunate in my presentation because I am lucky enough to have the best three resources in the world here with me today, and that is Diane, Dale, and John back here, and they can answer any question you can throw at me. So we're going to rely on them quite a bit today. Okay, so how do you get access to the PER? Of course, you're going to need a TEAS account, and so in order to do that, you will find that you can go to the TEA Secure Applications Information page. If you look up here at the top of any of our pages on the TEA website, you will find this TEA Secure Information link, and it will take you to the page that's shown up here. And right in the middle of this page, really in the very top box up here, it talks about accountability and how you get into the TEAS gateway, and it tells you that you can request an access form. And when you request that access form, you will be able to scroll down and fill out that form. And you will also notice that this very same page that we're working with here also has a TEAS and TEAL FAQ, and that's another great resource for how you get access. Once you fill out the form, it's really easy. I mean, the form's pretty easy. You fill it out online. You print it off. It does have to be printed, and it does have to go to your superintendent for a signature. And it's only the superintendent in your district that can authorize use of TEA's environment. And TEAS, incidentally, stands for Texas Education Agency Secure Environment, if you're wondering that. So again, the TEAS FAQ is a great resource for some information. You can even log on to TEAS right here on this page if you choose to. However, I'm going to suggest to you that as a best practice, you go ahead and bookmark the logon page to T's because you're going to be using it a lot. Anytime you get into your Perkins application, either to fill it out, to do the evaluation report, or to refer to it at any time during the year, make amendments or any of those things throughout the year, you're going to need to be using your T's account to do that. And so I would suggest that whether you bookmark it and put it into favorites, or whether you create a shortcut on your desktop, or whatever works best for you, I would suggest that you go ahead and do that because you will need that many times during the year. Okay, so there's another step you're going to have to go through, though, because once you do get the access through T's, then you're going to have to get into T's, and you're going to have to add and modify your application access. And in the upper right-hand corner of the application list page, you will find where you can add and modify your access to applications. And one of the things that you're going to have to do is select what your role is. And you will find that there is an area where you can look at the definitions for the different roles. And in fact, I'm going to show you some of that in just a minute. But you can kind of see down below that where you can select which one of these roles best describes your situation. And for some of you, you may be a grant official. For others, you may be a grant manager. You may just be grant staff. But you will fit one of those roles. All right. So, so grant roles. The grant roles, as you can see, they're probably the three that will be most likely to be you would be either a grant official, a grant manager, or a grant staff. Again, I'm not going to take time to read those, but certainly you can take a look at those and figure out which ones of those fits your particular situation. So how will I know when the PER is open? Well, probably the best way that you can know when the PER is open is to be a member of our Career and Technical Education Directors Listserv. How many of you are already receiving listservs from TEA for CTE? Oh my goodness, I think that's everybody. I believe it is. So we can really go fast through this one. I'm just going to kind of skip over this one. If you need more information, it's there. But it looked like everybody was already signed up for that, so that is a fantastic thing. All right, so let's take a look then about where do I find the PER? How do I find this form? I've got to fill this thing out every year. How am I going to find it? Well, I think to understand the Perkins grant cycle, it will help you a little bit to understand that you are really, and thank you, Ann, for your presentation a while ago, and Greg, I think that it would help you to understand that you are really working with two different Perkins grant years at the same time. And that's an important point that you have to keep in mind, because at the same time you're going to be filling out the Perkins grant application for 2015-16, you are also going to be doing the program evaluation report, and that's a product of the 2014-15 grant.
And staying clear on that when you're in those two documents, very important.
Yes, yeah. That's about the fourth cup of coffee right there when you're ready for that. So, yeah, make sure that you are going to the 2014-15 grant when you're looking for the PER. And, of course, you may be used to the different pages of your grant application that you can access right through this area on the screen. But the PER you will find listed right down here at the bottom under Compliance and Evaluation Reports. And if you just click on that thing, it magically opens right up and you've got that PER right there in front of you, and it is ready to go. So once it's open, you can just click on the button right down there at the bottom, and it should be there for you. If your district, however, how many of you are part of a shared service agreement? Your district is shared service agreement. Okay, yours is going to look a little bit different. You don't have all of that grant application there in front of you because you don't fill out the grant application, but you still are required to do the program evaluation report. And again, that's a really important point. So every year we seem to have districts who say, well, I'm part of a shared service agreement, I don't have to do that report. But that's not true. Every recipient of Perkins statewide is required to do the program evaluation report. So even if you're not the primary on that shared services grant and you don't have access to all of the things, yours will look a little bit more like this. You'll have the Carl Perkins designation form probably that has already been completed last year and filled out. And right under it, where you have the compliance and evaluation reports, you will find right there that you will have access to the PER. So whether you are a district that's applying on your own, or you're the physical agent for SSA, or whether you are a SSA participant, will determine how that may look for you. So let's talk about when is the PER due. Well, first let's talk about when is the PER available. Generally, we try to make the PER available somewhere right toward the end of May each year. And this year that is open. It's up and live and ready to go for you right now today. As you've already seen, we've already got some people who have got that completed and submitted and back into us, and that's a great thing. The deadline for submitting the program evaluation this year is August 14th. August 14th will be the deadline for submitting that at 5 p.m. Central Time that day is the deadline for submitting that. Yes, Ann?
Not getting anywhere close to the deadline is a really good strategy for submitting.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Because I'm going to tell you, there's going to be some piece of information that you never thought you were going to have that you're going to have. There's going to be something that comes up in this that you're going to wish you'd taken a little bit more time to think through, and I promise that. It's just the way it is. So, right down here on the bottom, it always tells you what the due date is. In this case, again, this year it is August 14th, but that may vary a little bit from year to year. Usually it's right around the 15th of August, though. And you will want to have your grant guidelines available for you. Over on the right-hand side under the program information, you will find over there that you can get to the program guidelines, and that is something that you will want to have handy. Probably you will want to have the program guidelines for this grant year. They'll help you with the PER. And certainly you'll want to take a look at those program guidelines as you're filling out the application for the new year. They will be in the same place on the new application. Okay, so what information do I need? So one of the neat things, I guess, about the PER is that eGrants, which is our system that this operates in, eGrants will allow you to open a printable PDF version of the Program Effectiveness Report. And the button for doing that is up here in the upper left-hand corner. If you'll hit printable version, it will bring up a PDF version of that. And you can either save it as an electronic file, and that's handy sometimes, or you can actually print it out hard copy, and sometimes that's handy. Sometimes you need to do both. And that will give you a reference for the types of information that you need. And you will notice that on the right-hand side also there is a button over here for instructions, and those instructions tell you really how to fill out this form. So really, once you get to this point, I could probably quit the rest of my presentation because you can print it out and take a look at what you need, and you got the instructions for it, but I won't do that to you. I'll go through a little bit further into this. one of the things I would suggest to you is that you kind of come up with a plan for this. And I think it is great to take a look at this as early as you can. We oftentimes, in fact, each year, we try to post a sample copy of the program evaluation report as quick as we have one. And one of the reasons for that is because we want you to be aware of what we're asking for, because as Ann said just a few minutes ago, one of the things that you will probably want to do is ask your staff to help you fill this out. They have some of this information, particularly when it comes to student licensure and certifications and those type of things. You may not know all of that information, and you may really need to depend on those teachers to help you gather the information that you need to complete this report. So you need to know what it is that you're being asked for, and then you kind of need to organize that in some manner. And in my mind, the way you do that kind of depends on what works for you. Sometimes it may depend on what size district you are. If you're in a small district, you may be able to walk down the hall and talk to every CTE teacher in a few minutes and get the information that you need. Greg, I bet you can't do that. I bet it takes a little bit more effort to fill out that program evaluation report in Conroe.
Absolutely. And actually what we do is we take it and we drop it into an Excel document, and we forward that to our teams department, and they're able to get all of the student information that we need to report on the program.
Great.
Exactly, and if you have to drill down and do your own research on that, it is all available in that same software that creates your teams. You can just go into that student information and pull it. Although it's much nicer if your folks are reporting it to you in whole. It takes a lot less time than drilling down for every single student on campus.
So I think this is maybe the most useful slide maybe in my whole presentation, because it tells you what information you really need in order to fill out the program effectiveness report. And you can see the list of information up here. There are 75 statements in this that address the required and permissible activities that are allowed under the grant, things such as administrative leadership and things like that, and how those things are reflected in your Perkins application, which is also really what is your local plan. You know, if anybody starts talking about your local Perkins plan, that is really your Perkins application. And it'll talk a little bit about articulation with post-secondary, the services to special population, program access, financial management and accountability. And what you do is you go through and you answer yes or no to each one of those questions, and then you have to provide evidence to support your answer. And the evidence could be things like an audit report or a district policy and procedure manual, information that you found in CEDAR, meeting agendas, minutes, those type of things. Part 3 is a narrative, and that's where you describe the areas that are intended for improvement and the methods that you're using to evaluate your programs. I'm going to be excited to hear. I'm working a lot this week. I work with our counseling academy quite a bit, so I probably won't be in the room a whole lot, but I've already made myself a note to come back tomorrow because I want to hear what Greg has to tell you about program evaluations, because I know that he does a great job with that, and I'm looking forward to that. And, you know, to that point, this is an evaluation tool, but do not get the idea that the program effectiveness report is the only evaluation that you need to be doing. And I'm anxious to hear what we're going to hear from Greg tomorrow. Parts 5 through 7 deal with student certification and licensure. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on those in just a few minutes. They probably create more confusion and concern, I guess maybe is a better word, than any other sections of the document. The final portion at the back of it, well, Part 8 is actually grayed out because it does not apply to what you do. And Part 9 then deals with the financial portion of it where you do your final report for your Perkins money for each year. Yes?
May I ask a question of the group?
Sure.
How many folks in here have access to the person that you replaced or who did the per last year? If you'd raise your hand. Okay. For those of you who don't have a hand raised, at the very minimum, if you don't have access to the person who last, cast that vision, you could go in and take a look at last year's program effectiveness report and just see what their narrative looked like and what they were thinking at the time that they wrote it. That's just one point of reference that might be useful if you can't have a conversation.
And that's a great point. Thank you, Ann, for that. That's a great point. Where would you do that? How would you do that? If you want to look at the program effectiveness report that was submitted a year ago, how would you do it? Go where? 1314 grant. You'd look at the same place down there at the bottom. You'd click on it, and it would bring up that report that was there. So, yes, you can go backwards and take a look at those things. And, please don't copy and paste. We want you to rethink each question as you're going through it. If you don't do that, you're really not using the tool for what it was intended for, and that's program improvement. That's really the purpose of this, is program improvement. We don't have Perkins police out there that are going to come get you if you put the wrong answer in the blank. We want you to think through what those answers should be, and that will apply differently to your district than it does to the district next door. That's why we don't just have one program effectiveness report for all people that are members of one SSA. We want each of them to think about what it takes to improve the program on their campus. Okay, need to hurry here. The top 5 reasons why we should complete the PER. Well, number 5 is to reflect on program effectiveness, as we've been talking about. Number 4, the possibility of being designated as a high-risk grantee. Woo, you wouldn't want that to happen on your watch, would you? The Perkins Act requires program evaluation. So if you're going to participate in Perkins, you've got to do some type of evaluation. When you certify and submit that grant application, you are agreed that you will do the program evaluation report. That's part of what the assurance is. And the number 1 reason why you want to be sure to do the Perkins program effectiveness report is failure to submit could result in your district having to refund the Perkins money that they have taken. That's a biggie too, isn't it? Some of you may have a big enough paycheck to pay that back, but I don't. Okay, and so moving right along, I want to talk for a minute about parts 5 through 7 and the CT Code 2 and 3 certifications and licensures earned. This is where we get the information for the core indicator that is what we call 2S1, or technical skill obtainment. And these exams or certifications must meet the definition that we have for a technical skill, and that is that they must be end of program, they must be industry recognized, and they must be both available and appropriate for secondary students. And what we're testing, what we're trying to find out here, folks, is not how many exams did you give. It's not about quantity, it's really about quality. So what we're looking for is, were the students who took the exam well prepared to pass those? I always use the example when I talk about this that if you have 100 kids in a program and they all took an exam, an industry exam, 100 kids, and 80 of them passed that. That's pretty good, isn't it? What's your passing percentage? 80%. Y'all are good. Great. What if you have 10 kids in the program and 9 of them pass? Yeah, you're 90% then, aren't you? So it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. It's how well did we prepare the kids to take an industry industry certification and licensure test. We do have a document on our website that I would encourage you to become familiar with, and that is the myths and facts about student and industry licensure and certifications.
That'll be a presentation later this afternoon. So.
Okay. And I will say to you that we are, as recently as last Thursday, we are revising that document slightly. And so, be looking for the new version to be posted on our website in the very near future. But basically, all the information that you're going to see in there is accurate and correct, and it does give you a good idea of maybe some of the things, some of the pitfalls to look out for as you're moving through that. Keep in mind the 3 threshold definition, the reason that we're collecting the data, the parameters that we have in the list that we're working with, and what it is that we're trying to do with the data that we collect when we do this. Keep in mind that there are excellent student certifications and licensures that are not on the Program Effectiveness Report. Okay, we have a tendency for people to say, well, it wasn't on the PER list, so I'm not going to let students participate in that report, that particular license. That's really not what you want to do at all. You want to make sure that you are serving the needs of the students. We do have an opportunity, if you feel like that there are licensures or certifications that meet that definition of being industry recognized in the program and appropriate and available for students. You think you've got one that meets that, and it's nowhere on that list to be found. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is encourage you to relook at the list and be sure that you're not calling it something different. We're going to try to have the official name of that up there. And sometimes the common name that it gets called may be different. So go back and look. And if you're used to calling it by an acronym, we may have it spelled out. We always try to have those acronyms on there too, but sometimes they may just be in a different alphabetical order than you're looking. So the first thing I'm going to do is encourage you to make sure it's not on the list before you do what I'm going to tell you to do next. But if you have one that you feel like is industry recognized, available and appropriate for students, and in the program, thank you, then certainly we want to know about it. And so how do you let us know about it? Well, there's another line at the very bottom. And what we want you to do is put as much information as you can, certainly including the official name of that licensure or certification, so that we can do the research to see if it does belong on the PER list in the future. Now, another thing, when you look at that line at the bottom, it looks like there's just one line there. And sometimes we'll see people who will put 6 or 8 different certifications on that one line. Don't do that. If you put one of them in and you hit return, it will add a new line. And you can get up to 10 lines that way. So you can put up to 10 licenses and certifications that you think meet that definition. I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. Please do not put those on there if you already know they don't meet that definition. All you're doing is taking up our time to have to go back and take a look at it. So if you know this is a beginning type of certification, something that's nice to have but isn't really end of program, just leave it off. Go ahead and use it. Let your kids do it. It's a great thing to do, but it does not belong on the Program Effectiveness Report. So what certifications and licensures should a district offer? Those that benefit students, they're reasonable for your program, they're available and appropriate for secondary students. You should not base it on whether or not it's on the PER. One more tip about the Program Effectiveness Report, and I'm about through. On the disability status data on parts 6 and 7, you will notice on there that the individuals with disabilities line for ADA is grayed out. That's that line I've got circled right here. The reason that's grayed out is because that line is appropriate, applies to post-secondary students and not secondary students. Secondary deals with the ESEA and the IDEA, and that's where secondary students would be reported. So we've grayed out the ADA line just so that you cannot make a mistake and put the data in the wrong place. So don't let that be confusing to you. And that brings us real quickly to questions. Do we have any questions? I know we went through that pretty quickly. Yes, ma'am.
I have some students who completed a course leading to certification, but the certification isn't until July. So are those listed next year, or are they listed this year since they took that course?
If you get the results before that program evaluation report is due, you can put them on this year's. They would not be appropriate next year because those students were not part of your completers for next year. So either you report them this year or you wouldn't report them at all. Now, does that mean it was a bad idea to give that particular exam? Not at all. Not at all. It does not mean that. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Certifications like CPR or car church licenses, all that kind of stuff, if they're not on the list, you're saying don't put them on the bottom.
Don't put them on